Our first presenter of the day will be Phil Sexton. And to start off, the talk about the successes that we've had here in Lake George as well as moving on. Phil is analogous with our model for road salt reduction. He has literally written a book on training and best practices for winter management. He's received a master's degree in sustainability and environmental management from Harvard University. I often playfully call him professor, but that is one of his many hats that he wears, along with being a farmer, business leader, author, and advisor. But most of all, he's a great friend for Lake George. Phil?
Thanks, buddy. I forgot I do some of those things, actually. But I'd like to, so really the spotlight really needs to be more on where the success is. So I think we're simply enablers of it. Could I ask Deb and Mike if you could join me? And we've got some cool stuff to share with you today. While they're coming up, I just wanted to mention, so Eric, you sort of inspired a few thoughts on my mind, as you always do. And one is, I realized, so one of the important partners that I've worked with for many years on this, a guy named Rakib Omer, he can't be here. He's the founder of a company called Viasis, which has really been some of the technology behind the scenes on this, particularly the measuring of the data that Eric's talking about. So, you know, you can say what you want about cutting things in half or whatever else, but you really have to first measure that. And that's really the first thing that we do is we think about measures. So when you hear about SWIM or Sustainable Winter Management, SWIM is a set of standards of both policy that enable practice. And so we always start with that first step measure. So it's that the old adage, that which is measured can be improved, right? And so I think we're the model for that here, right? And I'm thinking way back to when I first got introduced to Eric, and I sat in on one of the first SAVE meetings, and we're talking about 10 years ago now, right? So, you know, part of the model here, when you sort of set aside technology and equipment and all those other things, everybody likes to talk about blades, and we used to call them the black boxes, which is the salt tracking technology, but I think one of the most important pieces here is we've over the years really started to expose the fact that this is about culture, right? And I think what you know, when I first started here, it was the fun, but you know, the LGA, what it's really helped to enable is collaboration of all these different cultures. And I think what's really cool now is a good buddy of mine that as a landscaper, I worked in the field for years. So Anthony, I always give him kudos. He's out there with De-icing Depot, but he and I used to dig for trees together years ago. So it's a small industry world. But my point is, he said, hey man, every year I come here, it seems like this thing's getting bigger. And what's interesting to me is, you know, to sort of say to hi everybody online as well, like, this is really one of the first venues of its kind that then did this hybrid model as well. So, you know, you pivoted during COVID, and that sort of inspired that. And so, although the audience is getting bigger, and you see the vendor support's gotten bigger, but there's also all these other people out there that we don't even see right now. So I just want to recognize that. And then when you take it a step further, this is really scaled to not just in Lake George, but the park. So you're here with ADK Action, but you know, you've actually inspired that movement, if you will, throughout the entire park. And then, you know, from my perspective, we're working on this all over North America. But a lot of that points back to, so we see this thing going on at Lake George, tell us more, right? So I just wanted to thank Eric and the LGA and the board. Chris, you've been a tremendous partner with me over the years. We've kind of, you know, rolled our sleeves up together on this. And so there's been a lot behind the scenes to make this happen. It's not just us, and it's not just technology, and it's not just organizations, it's everyone. So thank you. So with that, I want to introduce you to a couple special people. You heard from Mike last year, and he's really taken off with this thing. And then Deb, so that's in the town of Peru, and then Deb with Washington County. I do want to call out Jim, I hope you're watching. So Jimmy Hogan, who's really, I think you would say, Deb, like he's really led the charge for you at Washington County.
Yeah, he's very passionate about it.
Super passionate, and that's what it takes, right?
Yep.
We say whatever it takes, but that's what it takes. And so Jimmy, unfortunately, like 8:30 last night, texted me and said, "Hey man, I got COVID." So it's like, oh man. So anyway, so Deb really did not want to take the spotlight on this, as you normally don't, but I think you've got a great story to tell. So one of the things I just want to say, we've got about, what, 20-ish minutes left here?
It's on your timer.
Oh, we have a timer. We have 25 minutes. So would like to make this a bit interactive too, right? So this doesn't need to just be talking heads. So we're going to start kind of giving you the story. You see some of the ideas here, but then I'll try to help facilitate some questions. And then we got a special little something going on at the end here. So Deb, you want to take it away?
Well, Phil touched on the fact that it's a team effort, and that's how it all started for us. It is really important that you have the support system of, and I'll probably forget people, but like the Lake George Park Commission, and we're out here, the Adirondack Action, and it's just everybody coming together, and without that, it's harder to do, as I'm sure Mike would agree to. So we thank Phil and everybody for helping us get along with this, but we wanted to protect our lake and our, what park? The Adirondack Park is part of, Washington County is in the Adirondack Park. And then we also wanted to try to save money in our budget. So, that was important. Years ago, and I wasn't here for it, but we had tried something and it didn't quite work. And I think that there's many reasons why it didn't work, but as I spoke about earlier, with the support system of, I can go to Peru and I can talk to them about what their lessons learned are. I can talk to Phil about, what should I do here? And, we come here and we talk to each other and mingle and we learn all these little things that help make the project more successl. So that was kind of a big part of how we got over our fear of failure, And at some point in the past, we switched from sand to salt only. That was a learning curve for the department, as I'm sure it will be for other people, but I think you're going to talk about how well that worked for you, Mike. Tools, technology, and techniques. So along the way, you find things that work that you never thought. You try this, it works, you try that, it didn't work. One of the things that we found is when we were doing our top coat of blacktop when we pave in the summertime, we switched from 12.6 to 9.5, and the guys came back from the plow routes and they were like, wow, that cleans up so much quicker. So you'll find little things along the way that help out with progressing your program.
And what I learned from Jimmy was that we kind of stumbled upon that, though, right? Like
Yes.
It was a different mix that actually showed up.
Yeah, I
Is
think that
right?
one day they didn't have that mix, or something happened and we're like, okay, we'll use this, and now that's what we use all the time on our top is the 6.5. So that's made a huge difference. Now we're switching over to warm mix eventually, so we'll see, that might even be better. Who knows?
Yeah.
So, the learning lessons on tracking and plows, and Brian, there's so much into this. You just have to be patient. You have to, there's keeping track and the program, and we made it so before you used to have to go around and put a zip drive into all of the trucks to see what they collected for data. And now we have it all hooked up so that it's Wi-Fi. So as soon as they pull in to the barn, it reads it for you. So that's helped us, time-wise to get to our data. And the plows, we've tried different edges on our blades. We've found a couple that we really like. We want to try some more. one of the barns wants to put different blades on all of their plows just to see. So it's worth it to try all these different ideas. Helping towns. Oh, Brian and helping towns. So what we have found is in our county there's 17 towns, and most all of them have been really getting involved in this. You know, they're interested in it. I know at least one of them's here today, Whitehall, and we used to partner with Warren County on making brine because they had a brine maker and we didn't. We kind of made a little homemade one, but that's how passionate Jimmy was about doing it. We actually made one because we couldn't get the funds to buy one. So we got the Lake Champlain Basin program. Yeah, so that's another one of the people that has supported us. And we were able to buy a brine maker. So we were also able to facilitate helping the towns. So now there's a number of towns, at least 5 of them in our county, who actually get brine now. So we make it and deliver it to them, and we're helping them get into it, and we're all learning that together.
Have you, just out of curiosity, so we talk about sort of progress with the resistance too. So when I was speaking with Jimmy about all this, it's, you know, there's been sort of resistance along the way, and then you kind of work through each one through those fear of failure, kind of overcome those. Is there still resistance at that level? And I'm calling it out because I think just to give kudos here is your county model, sort of co-oping with the towns and really helping support them is a bit unique, actually. So I think it's something that we can probably all learn from as well, as far as how we can co-opt the effort anyway.
Yeah, their challenges are a little bit different because they can't, they have a lot of dirt roads, you know. So we can't speak to that because we don't have any dirt roads. But I forgot what I was going to say. So.
No, that's cool. So can you talk to us a little bit about just where you are with application, with rates, and then, you know, Jimmy's really become quite passionate about how do we keep drilling down on the savings. So that's something that he's definitely been chasing after.
Yeah, so we started out with pre-treating the roads. There's 2 pictures on the bottom up there, yep. And this was one of the first years that we took these pictures. So it's up on Pilot Knob, which is along the east side of Lake George.
This one, yeah.
And I want to point out, I got to get this right, I want to point out that the picture on your right that shows more Bear Road, that was taken after the picture on the left. Mm-hmm. So the picture on the left was taken, you know, before that one. So he took this picture, and that was an untreated road. And then he went up the road, how many miles? Like 5 miles or something, and took the other one. And you could just see it working. And that's part of it, is when you take these pictures and when you do these experiments. The town of Putnam did the same thing in a parking lot. They treated part of a parking lot and not the other part of the parking lot, and took pictures. And when you see the pictures and you see it working and you see the dollars that you've saved in your budget, it just makes it all come together.
So, and to be clear, it's the picture is really an anti-icing application. So, you know, sort of before or, you know, upon accumulation, and then it's all done with direct liquid application of brine, and you're using just traditional sodium chloride brine that you're making yourselves now. So you have your own brine maker, and yeah, it's you know, from what we've seen and just hearing from the stories. I'll say too, like your team, I remember last year I walked in thinking I was going to meet with maybe a half a dozen guys just that had questions, and I walked in there, I think there was 26 people in the shop, right? And so the more of these pictures they seem to see, the more the passion seems to grow, is what we're observing. Yep.
We're all a great big team, and it seems to be working better when we're all working together.
So Jimmy and I, as late as yesterday, we did some math, And we actually looked back, I think it was 2018, 19 was the first season we looked back on, but you can never necessarily compare season to season and think that you're seeing reduction just from that, right?
Right.
But then when you correlate it with application rates and how much those have decreased, and when you look at frequency and how much that's decreased. So in a lot of cases, we hear a general term. This question comes up a lot, but you know, when you're lowering your application rate, I always use the toilet scenario, but like when they change the toilets to be half the amount of water flushing, but if you flush twice, it doesn't save anything, right? So same thing here, you have to make sure that we're not doubling frequency. And in a lot of cases, what we're seeing, and you can just talk to drivers about this, is like, so what do you see as the difference? Think about it. Well, we actually saved a lap. What do you mean by that? So it's like usually we go out 3 times during a storm like this, but I came back, I only went out twice. We kind of changed our timing of it, and there's more material in the back of the truck than I used to have, right? So that says a lot right there. And that's another form of measuring, but it's really from the eyes of the operator saying like, this does seem different, right? So
Right, that's like literally, that's the biggest part of our success is when the guys see it on the road and they get behind the program, and our guys have done a great job with that.
So when you just take your numbers, so we went very conservative on this. We actually came up with annual savings conservatively. We thought of 450, but I said, well, you know what? Let me under promise here for a minute. But it's 300 grand all day long, sort of shooting fish in the barrel, right? So it's likely more than that, but we admitted we've not necessarily sat down and done enough of the financials on this yet, so we've concentrated more so on application rate. But when you just look at year over year, you've been trending to the point now where you're close to about 40% reduction, right?
Right.
Yeah, so congrats, this is a great story. Anything else you think we should know, Deb?
There's so much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. It's been quite an adventure, and it's continuing adventure, so.
How about questions for Deb?
There was one from online.
Yep.
Could you explain why lowering the asphalt density helped?
So the size, we think that it's because the size of the grains is smaller. So it just seems to be because of that. Because when you get into the bigger mixes, the size of the components, so to speak, without getting all into blacktop stuff, is bigger. And we think that that is the reason why. That's what we think. We haven't done any study on it or anything like that. It's just something that we've observed, or that the guys have observed.
And there's guys and gals that know blacktop, so you can get into
Yeah.
it, Deb, if you want.
Oh, all right. Oh.
I mean, generally, from a contractor view, when we deal with permeable asphalt, and I'll just preface this with, I'm a fan of it for a lot of reasons. It's a nightmare when it comes to winter maintenance, though, because the porosity, right? So when you're, the denser, if you will, the nooks and crannies, right? The less the porosity, and so you're not losing, particularly with brine, you're not losing some of that to it's getting past the surface, right?
Down.
Say that again, Aaron?
Less surface area for the ice to adhere to.
Less surface area
Floors are not as big.
for the ice to adhere to. Yep, amen.
It's like, in our world, the sealed parking lots are the best. You barely have to salt them at all.
So, Aaron, you're saying sealed parking lots, you barely have to salt them at all?
A live edge.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So if you're in the Burlington market, hire Aaron. Just saying. Okay. Little plug there. There you go. Thanks for coming. What else should we know? What other questions? Okay. Mike, you ready?
I got you.
Okay, and again, I always introduce Mike this way, is he's the first guy in 10 years that not only did we not have resistance, but I felt I had to create some resistance so you didn't go too far out of the gate too fast, right? So But you did a great job in your first year, pretty amazing results. So you want to share?
Yeah, like Phil and Tim and Matt from Town of Hague, Rob, Lake George, I want to thank them because we had the initial meeting with the board, explaining what I wanted to do for our town, not only for the town of Peru, but also to bring in other towns, counties, hopefully for the North Country from where we're up in. They wanted me to do 1 or 2 runs. I've never done anything slow. So I looked at it, we do 7 plow runs. I looked at it as 7 experiments all in one time. Come back, talk about it. I'll be honest with you, I didn't expect what I got. You walk in a break room and they're talking how low their numbers got. It continued to get lower and lower. I guess I'm kind of known as a guy that sometimes never happy. I shouldn't say it that way, but satisfied, I guess is probably the right word, because there's always improvement. The industry is changing. And how we got there, again, it was Town of Hague, Town of Lake George, relying on them, and that's what helped. We got controllers on all 7 trucks right out of the gate. We got a salt brine mixer. We installed it in our garage in a heated building, so come winter, 2 guys are in there in a t-shirt with a loader, mixing brine, sending it out the storage tank. We bought a brine sprayer. It was a little late getting into it. We got 10,000 gallons of storage as of last winter. Since we bought another 10, and my goal is hopefully in 24 to go to a 30,000 gallon brine. We pre-treat every road going into the schools and all the 55-mile-an-hour roads. So what we found, pre-treating the roads with the introduction of the live edge blades, every run, every time out, when they scrape and come back, that lane is bare to the blacktop. Nothing adhering, so it works. It is costly to get set up. Like I said, with my board, they were willing to do this. Like again, it's not just for us, it's for Town of Peru. And then what I can tell you, come spring, no sand pickup, no nothing, just straight to road work, putting culverts in, ditching, and we saved, and I'm gonna be conservative, 80 grand, just by not buying sand, hauling it, mixing it, all that stuff, putting it up. We got a 140 foot by 72 foot salt shed, which is gonna be a glorified equipment shed when we're all said and done come this year. We're gonna have salt in there.
Reuse.
Our numbers aren't where we wanna be, we're still learning. We got some older trucks that, a gentleman from Phil's group's gonna come up and help us get those numbers down. We're having struggling on some of the older setups. As we replace the trucks, we're going with the new technology, but I've never been afraid to switch in something that works and try something new. But I couldn't do this alone. The gentleman over there in the table I'm with they took this thing and ran with it. And when we got all said and done in the spring, it's another thing I didn't expect is we got, I don't know how many postcards, emails, cookies dropped off, donuts, coffee, thank you. And they said, well, I don't know what the hell you're doing, but it's working. So it's doing what we want to do. We want to set an example. And on the brine system, my goal is down the road is to be like Washington County, a regional hub on the brine. My board fully embraces that, but as more towns hopefully buy into this from this area, so that's where we're at. We do have 6 remote cameras, which will save me a lot of hours that we can post. It'll send them thing back to the phone or my computer because where we are, as you get up towards the west, there's no cell service. So I got to drive up at 2:30, 2:45 at the latest in the morning, and I got to, I'm 35 minutes before I can get back for cell service, even to call somebody out when I know I got to have help. So I'll be able to pull this up on my phone won't have to, I can do it from my house, the office, and I can start calling people in. We got 6 of them. We hope to expand that network as we get more money. But it's been a success in that sweeping I was talking about. That's saving us anywhere from a month to 6 weeks of work. And, you know, as the weather gets nicer, you got the motorcycle people, when you're gonna sweep the road and all that, we don't have any of that. So it's been a success, way better than we thought. So, you know, we're very happy with it. And I would tell anybody out there, don't be afraid to try it. It definitely works. It's good for the environment. It's good for everybody. It's good for the taxpayers. So it's, you know, it's a win-win situation as far as I'm concerned.
Amen. Thanks, Mike. You and your whole team have been a real inspiration. We met with just a small amount of, I wouldn't even call it resistance, but just apprehension at first. I think there's always questions. What does this mean for me? What does this mean for, you know, overtime or my pay and things like that? And so those are the things that we should be aware of, is like, you know, with cost savings, you know, there could be unintended consequences either on your budget or in people's pay if we don't, you know, address that up front as well. And so, and I think generally, I mean, what have we found financially when it comes to that? Just,
Yeah.
has there been a consequence, I guess, is the question.
No, it's been good, and we have a plan. If it does start to cutting in overtime, we're going to copy the Town of Hague. If it starts hurting people's bottom lines, instead of me leaving in the morning, we'll bring an employee in. He'll get the overtime that way to make up for it. And
Yeah.
you got to be mindful of that, especially around Christmas time, because that's when people would like the extra money and stuff. So we got a plan for that. And it'll help me get a little more sleep. So,
Yeah.
and I can spend more time planning projects for the summer. So,
Do we have questions? Yeah. ahead,
Online
Bree.
question, does brine only work in higher elevation / colder weather? And a second part to the, okay, that's it.
I can tell you the brine will work anywhere. I've tried it. We last winter when we got into it, I do have additive to make it to work at the cold temperatures, but it didn't get cold enough to do it, and, to use the brine. But you gotta be mindful too. If it's, 30 below zero, don't do it. Just leave it off, let your edges do, and then, like I said, we did I had a sander in, but we had to pull the sander out, put the briner in, and we were short help, so I was doing that. I had the village run. I said, the hell with it. We put the brine tank in, and it never come back out. I used strictly brine there, and then pre-treated the 55. It will work. I'm comfortable now with the additives to be able to put in it to make it work. We were just talking about on the way down to maybe try a run up in the higher, colder temperatures, but I'm not quite ready to pull the trigger on that, but it's certainly the back of our minds.
So where Mike did try direct liquid application only, right? No solids at all, was in the village, flat
Yep.
areas, and it was a little bit by default because he didn't want to keep switching out. He didn't have another truck, so he didn't want to keep switching out the sander and.
Yep.
But it works. So like sometimes you stumble upon these things, which is important. I think just one last thing to answer that question, I think we'll move on, is if you're using, to answer the question, if you're using solid rock salt now, you are using brine. Because the solid rock salt has to convert to a brine for it to then lower the freeze point of water on the surface. So if you're apprehensive about it, just keep in mind we've always, as professionals, we've always been using brine. Just has to convert first.
One of the biggest things that's helped us is we have the flow chart, and the flow chart tells the temperature that you can apply, the humidity, the wind speed. I mean, there's like, I don't know, 12 or more things on that, and if you meet all that criteria, then you can pre-treat your roads.
Amen, yep. That's a great point. Kevin?
Mike, what additives are you using? in your brine?
Magic, I call it.
Magic minus zero, yeah.
Yeah, Magic zero. Come from Innovation Solutions. It's there. We haven't used it yet. It's sitting there. But if it calls for it, I will use it. And there's other brands out there. That's just what we went with.
Actually, Innovative's here today. If you have questions, they're really good at answering those. Cool. Any other questions?
Mike, when did you start this reduction program? And I just wanted to get an idea on your investment, and if you have an idea when that might show returns, so you can tell your board.
Yeah, I actually started following this when late George started, but I had an older crew. I brought it up, and there was resistance, and I said that I could see it wasn't time to pull the trigger. As through retirements and people moving on these other jobs, my crew got young, other than one gentleman's just a little bit younger than me. And he was one I was worried about. But after 2 trips out with it, he could come in the office and he said, I don't know how, but it does work. So I followed it, and then when that switched, I pulled the trigger. I thought, I got a whole new crew. They're either going to embrace it or they won't, and they embraced it way better than I thought. And she, this lady here, Deb talked about it. It's cultural change. It is hard to get somebody to switch when you've been doing something for 20 years. It's definitely hard. But the transition made it easy for me. I've had it easy, so that's kind of when. But we pulled the trigger 2 years ago.
Scott?
Mike, said you reduced your sand by 95%. Where are you still using sand? Where are you still using it? And why?
Well, so Scott's remarking, we didn't say 100% sand reduction, so we said 95%. So
Yeah.
where are we still using the sand, or what
The only
reason would
time I'm using sand, actually, we're unloading our shed right now. There was 3,000 yards. We sold it. I'm going to keep 15 loads, probably somewhere around there. And the only time that sand will come out will be if it's freezing rain, something like that, or if I'm in between loads, if I happen to get low in salt. I normally buy my salt over 2 budgets. This is going to be the first year I bought it all in 1 year, so I don't anticipate that happening. But I don't plan on using any sand.
Good question. Yeah.
Mike or Phil or the woman, do you have a sense of how long it will take you to recoup your investment? Or if not, is there a general, and I know it's subjective by town, but 3 years?
3 seasons typically, yep. I think you may have already recouped half.
Yeah, we
just in the
recruited
first
quite a
year.
bit. I did not cut my budget. Again, talking to Town of Hague, working with the board. I had a good board. We're keeping the budget where it is. We're taking that savings and we're reinvesting it in equipment because this industry has really took off. It's changing. So that was great advice from the Town of Hague. So that's where we are. We're not cutting it. We're just going to reinvest it in other ways.
And that's critically important because
Yeah.
we almost ran into that years ago. Chris may remember we had to have that conversation. Whoa, time out. The savings aren't really the savings until you get it to sort of 100% following swim, and then even then I'm not sure I'd ever do that. So to me it's about cost control, right? We're not raising the budget. We're just simply not cutting it at this point. Okay. So any other questions? Ruth?
Deb just walked away, but maybe somebody else can
Yeah.
answer. She mentioned how effective the flow chart that they developed was to address all of the data that comes in to help them decide how they progress with their treatment for
Yeah.
a given day. I was just wondering if they've shared that flow chart or how they approach it with other towns or communities, because if it works so well for them, it sounds like a resource that would be really nice to share.
Yeah, so it's a flow chart. It was actually developed by a coalition of folks. I have been involved with it. It's Joe with DOT. You probably know this flow chart well as well. It's sort of an if-then flow chart. So, yeah, it's a decision tree, exactly, yeah. So That's a good question. How do we get that out? I think it's probably something we could throw on a couple websites here, so let me think about that. I'll make this commitment to you right now, though. If you just go to our website, woodadvisors.com, /swim, I'll put it up there for you. And then I'm sure there's probably a way we can get it on the LGA. So give me a week and then we'll throw it up there. So go ahead, Bree.
We have a few online questions. The first one is, are dirt roads able to benefit from this at all? And if so, do you have thoughts on how to handle those?
Aha.
Dirt roads?
Do we have time for this? So we're 4 minutes over now. Is this okay? Yeah, cool. So dirt roads.
We don't have any. I only have 600 feet. I would advise not treating the dirt roads. You're going to mud them up. They're going to tear them up plowing, especially with the live edge blades. I was actually talking to the guy from Argyle. He's got a lot of dirt roads, and I would suggest do not do that.
I would say one should be no salt, right? So we're always trying to deal with hard pack though. So I think the blades still matter. Segmented plow technology without, I think, is Putnam here. I think you talked to me about, you still put shoes on those, so you do still get some live action from that without digging into it. So that's one suggestion. I've seen a lot of dirt roads in my experience where we're over sanding them and then we are mudding them up. Yeah. Best example I have is my time in Watertown. Actually, we used 1Bs, and that was actually good for then creating more base on the roads later on, and it actually helps break up the hard pack on those. So those are a few ideas, but I think that's a bigger discussion actually. So we've been getting that asked a lot, and I would just say, as far as some of the materials themselves, like we shouldn't be putting chlorides on those roads really. So, any other questions? Okay. Tim and Rob, are you here in the room? If you could come up. I want to just jump to, so we spent half a day not too long ago, both in Peru and in Washington County. So we've been looking at the data, we've been observing, we've been training, we've been engaging, and we felt at this point it was time to do a full review of what they've been following with swim, and so I'm happy to announce so that they've both actually earned swim certifications. So, Rob, if you could, Rob's really been integral. I think Rob and Tim both, but I think Rob's really been spending a lot of time with Washington County, and Tim, I know. From what Mike's told me, you and Matt were really a big inspiration for them in Peru. And I think this, again, is testament to how this whole effort, this whole initiative that started here in Lake George has scaled really beyond Lake George now through the park, and I think in a lot of ways has become the national model. So congratulations to you both. If you want to have your teams come up after we present, and we'll take a couple pictures here. So they're all here. The folks that you see named here, they're all here today. So big congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you want to do one at a time here, and then we'll move on? Okay. If we could have the Washington County group come on up.
Come on, guys, get up here.
And Mike, if you could have your group come up, and then this will be our break before the next session.
So is it break time?
No, just a couple minutes here. You want them right here? Or over this? Hey, guys. Ah, yeah. How you doing, buddy? Good to see you.
Where's Rodney? Here, you guys hold that. Don't drop it, it's heavy.
feels like a mugshot.
All right, thank you. Congrats. Dental fellows.
Over there.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Give it to the old man.
Thank you, guys. And again, this group here, this is, so you asked about the return, and I said 3 years. Unless you have a team like this, and then it's much quicker. So we're pacing this much quicker now. So I always say just one last thing. You hear me say it every year, but I think it's important. What these folks do in the middle of the night when the rest of us are sleeping needs to be recognized. So these guys are all heroes, right? So thank you.
Thank you, Mike and Deb. Congratulations, and thank you, Phil, again for all your effort and leadership.
Again?
Yes.
I'm Dennis Dickinson, a supervisor of Lake George. I just wanted to thank Rob Velopoulos for getting us started on this SALT program. He was a wonderful, excellent employee, and I'm glad to see that he got a real job.
Okay, with that, we will continue with the Town of Lake George. I'd like to invite Supervisor Dennis Dickinson, Deputy Supervisor Vinnie Crocitto, and the Highway Superintendent Rob Lanfear up, because we want to take this to the next level. The Town of Lake George really was a leader and has been recognized. They were the first adapters of brine. This photo is actually from the front of the old Fund for Lake George parking lot when they were just starting to fabricate their own brine, make it. Actually, kind of farmer rigged it with a with a storage tank and with a pump and PVC, but trying it on the road in front of our office as well as in the parking lot. They were the first to make brine. We provided them through SnowX, this brine maker, back in 2016-17. I won't tell you the exact words of the previous superintendent, what he told me to do with this, but they stuck with it and started to become the first adapters. And they were also the first swim certified program. This was back in this room, I think, 2018. So they've been leaders this whole time. So now they're looking at a new brine maker to really up, that old one was archaic, took a lot of labor and created a lot of sludge and whatnot. But we're going to upgrade them to a new Henderson model. But one of the things we really wanted to work with the town was to create a brine cooperative. How do we make a reach out, connection to businesses, connection to the private sector? So we'll expand this road salt model initiative to that private sector with the support of the town. And we will train these private applicators to further salt reduction, because they say 50% of the salt loading is actually from the private applicators. So this is a way that we want to reach out, take our success with the municipalities, bring it to the private, and have them work with the town as well as with advisors, Rob and Tim and Phil, and learn how to do this better. So with that, we are pleased to announce and provide from the Lake George Association a $40,000 road salt reduction grant to the town highway department to help them with the brine maker and to establish this cooperative. So the town, we'd like to bring that up. Congratulate the town for their hard work. Congratulate Rob Lanfear. Really appreciate his efforts. And with that, we'll make this possible. And Dennis, if you have any words?
Yes.
Usually does.
I think I do. I've had 4 months off. I got a lot to say. You want me to take that? Got it. The town of Lake George, in the 14 years I've been on the board, is a very conscientious board about the environment, protecting our lake, maintaining the quality, improve the environment. We've done a lot of programs, but I have to tell you, this salt reduction is the big key to our success. It's been tremendous, and I really think that we're headed in the right direction to start drawing in the private sector. We're very glad that the Fort William Henry is willing to do this. They've got certified people and they bought some equipment, so we're going to see how it goes. Thank you, LGA.
Thank you very much, Dennis, and thank you, Rob and Vinnie. So with that, we've reached our first break. We said we'd give you some breaks. So I'd like to thank all the presenters and be back at 10:15 for the Adirondack Road Salt discussion.